I've been doing this stuff for about 30 years, working with digital humans, motion capture, cutting edge digital human technology for a long time now. I was a pioneer in the facial motion capture of Avatar, Tintin, Polar Express, and many other movies. I've written a long time ago, I've always been interested in AI. It started off because I was super interested in building robotics and so forth, and that led me to writing a patent on robotic skins and AI, strong AI. I did that like 20 years ago, and about 13 years ago, I started Mimic Productions, which is a leading digital human company. And about 2 years ago, when ChatGPT came out, I was like, finally, it's here. I got a brain to stick into my avatars. And that's exactly what we did. And we're now making conversational AI avatars for a lot of different purposes, meaning you can talk to them and they talk back to you on the screen. And so, oh, that's different there. Okay. And so we, since I started the company, we've worked with a lot of different industries. Some of them go from like music videos to visual arts, fashion, AI chatbots, robotics. We even worked on Sophia, the robot. She's kissing Will Smith there, and a lot of others. Basically, anywhere you can imagine a digital human there, we've kind of created it for that industry, which is kind of fascinating because that was really why I created the company. I wanted to take the same high quality look that we were making in movies and then transport that across a bunch of different industries. So it's a dream that came true. And so, basically, I wanted to talk about first off, what conversational avatars can do. Basically, when we're doing this, we're trying to be essentially the face or the interface of technology. So that you have a real person to talk to make it more personalized in the experience. And it really focuses on human-like communication. We're trying our best each and every day to really enrich that quality of the character. They can speak, what's great is they can speak all these different languages and they can really interact with people that maybe don't have access to different kinds of technology. Imagine like somebody that's, in a wheelchair, or they just simply can't, they can talk to it now, or somebody that doesn't have access to learning, you got a tutor that can be available 24/7. There's a lot of purposes. And they have a lot of use cases when you really think about it, from customer services to influencers to somebody that can help you out in different scenarios. And especially entertainment is a huge one. We did a big project recently, and I think I'll go over that here in a little bit. And so, first off, then I have to think about what's the purpose of the EU AI Act, and basically, what it was meant to do is it's meant to balance safety versus innovation, because that's a huge topic, and it's meant to protect citizens' rights, of course. And it sets global standards for AI for other countries to kind of look at and think of whether they want to take the same path. It really creates transparency with the use of AI, and it creates it creates responsibility for the AI development. So everybody's not just going crazy and making whatever they want. You got to kind of rein it in and make sure it's safe for everybody. That's my takeaway with the EU AI Act. But there's a lot of, with conversational AI avatars, there's a lot of ethical challenges. And this is because, like, for example, identity and consent, basically, these are real faces, these are real voices that we're hearing, and it can be kind of difficult to tell the difference between the two. And yeah, and then also deepfakes and misinformation. There's a massive issues there that we have to be responsible about, because most of the people that we see that we pay the attention to on the news are in video or image form. And if there's a lot of power and there's a lot that we need to like watch out for in these particular areas just to make sure it doesn't go bad. And there's a lot of issues with bias and fairnesses, with diversity and stereotyping, because like essentially there's a huge issue around this, because a lot of times when they're doing the training of the data, these LLMs in particular, and video AI, they're basically not using a full sample reflecting everybody in the world. They're creating this AI mainly in America. Now China's doing it a bit more. So we have to be conscious of the data sets that we're using, and making sure that these things are fair. Even we use them because we have to essentially use that, but to make our characters talk. But what they're actually saying, it needs to be very conscious on who we're talking to. Otherwise, stereotypes will develop, and that's not really what we're wanting. And of course, as you mentioned, energy consumption is a huge thing that we have to be very concerned about, because they're using a lot of it. At Mimic, we try to really, much like you would take your trash and put it in each one of the bins, we do that with our LLMs that we use. And we're always searching for, the ethical way of doing it to reduce the power. Like we ask ourselves, do we need to go to the cloud? Could we run an LLM on our local PC? And that's just one tiny thing we're doing to try to reduce the energy consumption. But there's a lot of other ways that you can do it too, to ensure that, especially as a responsible company, you need to take actions like this to ensure that you're doing whatever you can to keep it green and make it better. And so with this slide, with AI avatars, a lot of times people might ask, who owns the avatar in the end, right? Because these avatars can do a lot of different things, and have a lot of possibilities within the future. Well, with ours, we're building custom 3D avatars, which are different than some of the AI type of avatars you might see coming from Meta or so forth, because those are 2D representations. With 3D, you have a lot more possibilities with the way the character moves. For example, it could be like, it could look like any cartoon character, a realistic character. It can look like anything. And these conversations, it becomes very important that they are in 3D, because it gives you a lot more control over the final output, But anyways, it's very with our characters, they're made to order, I guess you would. And when sorry, yeah. And something that's really important is also transparency and disclosure of these AI systems. Because AI, it must be clearly defined according to the EU AI Act. Like, what that means is as they approach more and more human status, especially in their mannerisms and the way they look, it becomes extremely important that they tell you, hey, I'm an AI avatar, because you may not know. And that's a massive issue in many different areas, because right now, AI just started passing the Turing test, which is an interesting phenomenon. And now that that's happening, I think it's mainly in paper and talking form, but once it starts to really pass the Turing test in visual form too, it's going to go back to what the issues we had before with misinformation, and who knows who's in charge of these things. We take it very carefully, but other companies may not have the same moral compass that we do. But hopefully the AI Act fixes that. And you can do this by essentially, whenever the avatar starts to speak to you, just let the avatar tell the viewer, like, hey, I'm an AI avatar, I'm not a real person. That you could do it in the introductory phases, or you can do it with visuals. There's different ways to kind of announce that to people without being overly distracting from the overall cool experience that you can have with one. And so there's also it's really important what you do with people's data and privacy, because basically you're having a conversation. They're getting to know you quite well over a period of time. And so it's really important that at least from the GDPR's perspective, of where the data goes, the ownership of it, and you really have to take these things into consideration and have long meetings to make sure that you're structuring the avatar to be as it should, to be compliant. And so with Mimic Productions, Mimic Minds, with the characters we're making, we're really focusing on privacy first principles. And that kind of goes into where the data is going. Is it going to be hosted locally? Like, whose data? How important is the data? And there's some really serious risks there, not only with like a basic avatar that you're friends with, but there's a different kind of risk associated with like banks and so forth, because we've been contacted by a bunch of them. They want us to build AI avatars, and we're like, it becomes really a whole new level of security around that, and the different things that we have to think about. That, as well as medical too, because it can know your medical history, and if that went out, that's not very European friendly, let's put it that way. Like because you want to keep your data to yourself. And so towards ethical deployment, we see we see a responsible AI is got oversight and explainability to the overall thing, and then and we always have to work with our clients closely to ensure that the development is part of the process, so that they understand what they're getting. And for us, and I think everybody out there should be really considering it, is the companies that really are using the data should need to be ethical in the way they develop, and they need to really think about humanity and what's right and what's wrong, because you're using different parts of pieces to create what you're trying to make. And so it's really important, and I hope that there's some standards that worldwide we can kind of agree on to some degree or another. And so in shaping the future, one of the important things I want to ask is AI avatars become really integrated into our lives, we must ask not just what they can do for us, but who they become. Who are these avatars becoming in the future, and who are these new personalities? I think it's a very interesting question that I don't know the answer to yet. And that's about it for me. Thank you.